Alright, time for another draftphysics.com video presentation. Third try at this video. OBS is not being very cooperative. Anyway, so I haven't heard anything from anyone regarding theoretical problems. So I pose a whole bunch of theory and explain how it's not theoretically possible. That creates perpetual motion. I show how easy it is to make the perpetual motion machine. So you don't get any counter-arguments explaining any of how there's an alternative theory to the theory I'm proposing, and here's how it works. There's nothing like that. There's no explanation for how kinetic energy theory possibly physically actually works in the universe. So I've given examples of 8-pound bowling balls and 16-pound and 10-ton trains and 5-ton trains and levers and all this stuff, and no one's explained how any of what I've said is wrong. So, I'm sort of to the point where, yeah, what's the point? Obviously, the level of conversation in this group can't achieve better than silly arguments about, Superman's better than Batman, who'd win in a fight or something. I mean, it's pitiful physics. So anyway, part of that conversation, so there's two main issues of dispute in terms of the fact that there's a lack of evidence, unfortunately. And some of these experiments are so simple, you'd say, why? There's got to be evidence of that somewhere, but there just isn't. And so, and there are instruments, tools that are better, way better experiments than others. Some experiments are less likely to get specific enough, detailed enough to see the truth. And so there's some dispute about what experiments we should be using in the first place to discern these truths, and who has the equipment to do them, and whether we should get people who have the equipment to use the equipment and actually do the experiments. Actually provide details like the masses of the carts and that kind of stuff. I mean, very simple stuff. So in that process, I have had some dispute with Brozo. I think that's his official name. But anyway, a person on the internet. Oh, that's not what I want. I want this first. And the camera should work now. Please. Thank goodness. All right. So I proposed an experiment because we don't have anybody willing to do the air track. So even though Stephen Bro has an air track, he hasn't done these two simple experiments. You just put a spring and you put a 1-mass object, and then you put a 2-mass object. Compress the spring the same amount, just shoot the objects and see what the velocities are. Because he's contending that there is some physics theory that it should be 1.4, even though there's no such theory in physics that I know of. Can't find anybody except for Piro who endorses such a theory. They leave the question unanswered. They just say sometimes momentum's conserved, sometimes kinetic energy's conserved. It's all just some kind of ambiguous mush. I would say from intuition we know that if I use the same force and apply it to two objects, that I'm going to get different, it's going to be manifested. The same momentum, the same force will be manifested in two inverse ways. A 10-ton train will go 5 miles an hour, a 5-ton train will go 10 miles an hour. So a half-mass object will go twice as far in velocity than a 2-mass object. Now, so I proposed an experiment that takes away friction. You still have gravity applying friction, but that friction is very even. So both objects incur the same stopping force, which is gravity, pushing them into the ground. But theoretically, you would get an accurate result. And I predicted that you would get the lighter object goes twice as far as the heavier object. Twice as massive, half the velocity. And this was a pretty good way of detecting that. Now, Stephen Bro did the experiment and came up with a result of 1.27, meaning that the lighter object only goes 0.27 faster, so that it would land here. So the two-mass object, the two-velocity object, the lighter object, the smaller mass, this is the bigger mass, the smaller mass would land here, just 0.27 away from the twice as heavy mass. Just 0.27. And then he mocked me with my, this is a dickhead. You're a dickhead if you believed it would go twice as far. So if you, you know, again, if you believe that you can push a 30-pound kid twice as fast as a 60-pound kid, if you believe all of your years of intuition tells you that if I make a car twice as light, you know, it takes half as much fuel to go and all that kind of stuff. I mean, if that logic fits in your brain as it does in mine, this seems like a perfectly fine answer. It always happens this way. So he did 2 experiments. So twice he shoots little frisbees and gets 1.27, and then he knocks balls, steel balls. It seems like he can't fuck that up, and he gets 1.27 again. So he didn't get even 1.4. He gets this less, even less, which is just insanely less. So anyway, so I'm forced to do it. So instead of doing the air track experiment that everybody wants to see, you know, to see the professionally designed, deliberately for the purpose experiment, we're settling for these lesser experiments, you know, where I'm banging, you know, steel rods into steel rods and different things to try to find a cheap version of the air track. And that's all this was, is another cheap version. And so he's gotten 2 results that make absolutely no sense. So I'm forced now to do an experiment. So I didn't want to have steel balls bouncing across the floor and all that kind of crap. And I thought if maybe I could just make a pan of sand and then catch them in that. And it's just way too much trouble. So I just decided to make a semi-frictionless track. You know, a low friction track to just roll things down. And I think it's good enough to prove the point. And that's all it's for, is just to prove the point that this really is a ludicrous outcome, and there's got to be a reason for it. The launcher is, I would say, a very good place to first look. But anyway, so anyway, that's the controversy. And it all comes down to, you know, I wrote these numbers down here. You can't really see them, but you know, this is how much the momentum increases by kinetic energy theory. I just bang a light object till twice a heavy object. I have 177, then 234, then 311, and I've only got up to 8 ounces. And at 1.6 kilograms, I've increased my momentum by, you know, 300 joules perhaps. Anyway, too silly. It's not 300 joules, it's 300% of what you started with. Okay, so let's do, I'll show you, I did a simple experiment. I think it's close enough, good enough for the purpose of just saying, wait a minute, you know, you're a long way from proving anything. So I have gone over all the air track footage. You know, I've made extensive arguments about how levers work. All of that stuff is in other videos. If you're at all interested, you really have to watch some of those videos, frankly. So I'm not going to do it over and over again. All right, so this is what I set up. So it's a piece of a rubber band and merely stretched. So I'm just duplicating a slingshot essentially, and I'm just going with the basic logic that if I put 2 marbles in the slingshot and shoot them, they're going to go half as far as if I just shoot 1 marble with the same amount of stretch in the slingshot. And so that's the basic principle. I can tell you how the numbers came out. So with 1 ball, the average is 12. 12 inches in 12 frames, okay, per 10 inches. So that's what the velocity comes out to. So we'll do that. We'll play one version of it, and then we'll, you know, go to the next and then show the 2-ball thing. And I'll say the 2 balls were 21 frames per 10 inches. So not exactly half, but close enough. And so instead of, you know, let's go back to the Brozo image just to rub it in a little bit. Yeah, back here will do. So he has this thing. So this is where I guess they should land. He calls it dickhead, and he's calling it dope and stupid, and you're a moron if you believe this. So in my experiment, they landed right there, okay, right on the edge of that, and nothing over here at all. So exactly twice the distance almost, pretty close, you know, within 10%. So nothing like his results at all, exactly the opposite. his are the dickhead looking guesses. Nothing, those predictions are way out of bounds compared to my results. So I'll just state that. And that's as far as it goes. Like I said, I'm not trying to prove it for all of science, for all of time. I'm just saying it's a simple experiment. I did a simple experiment. I really don't like doing experiments. I really don't want to do experiments. They really should be done professionally and well. That's what I'm arguing for. It is conventional physics that unfortunately can't produce the experiment. Again, these very, they did high-speed air track experiments, high-speed camera, 1,000 frames a second kind of stuff. And they don't tell you the masses of the carts. I mean, what's the point? It's just such a waste of the technology. You can't use the experiment for anything. It's absolutely useless without the masses. Can't predict anything, can't mathematically analyze, can't do anything with the data because they didn't give you the simple explanation of the masses. I mean, pitiful. Disgraceful, really. A disgraceful evasion. And clearly, why didn't they give you the numbers? Because the numbers don't work. If they show you the real experiment, then they're going to have to show you that it really doesn't happen. The math doesn't predict the right result. All right. So let's play one of these. And as an example, so I'm just saying they came out with numbers, 14, 11, 13, 12, 12, 13, 13, 12, 13, that kind of stuff. All right, so we'll just play one of these. We don't need sound. And all right, so at 27, you could say a little bit ahead of 27. So we'll go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. 13. It's a little bit further than the other one, so it's a little behind the 7. So 13. Okay, that's typical. All right, so we'll jump ahead to the typical. The others were really consistent with two objects. It was 21, 21, 20, 20, 21, 20, 21. I mean, really consistent. All right, oh, sure, sorry. Yeah, I'm back. All right, so we'll play this. So I just stuck 2 in there, and so that's all that is. It's just 2 of them. They usually are separated by a little bit of a distance, but it really didn't matter. If they were really close to each other, they'd go just as fast as if they were a little bit away from each other. So it's the same rubber band, same stretch, produced shooting 2, which is twice the mass. And that is, the glare is there, but that's 27, 28, 29. So it's right on 30 for the first one. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 21. So that's what all the results say, blah, 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 blah. Very simple. I have a clothespin, with a needle in it that's pulling the rubber band back. So there's a little piece of fishing line on the rubber band. The fishing line goes around a little pin in a clothespin. I undo the clothespin. I press on the clothespin, it undoes the pin, releases the rubber band. So it's very simple. And I'm not saying it's the best experiment in the world. I'm not saying any of that crap. I'm just saying it clearly shows that 1.4 is out of the question, not even close. And 1.27 is really crazy. Okay, so that's all it's for. It's just to say, come on, this experiment can't be that broken. That's too simple to be that broken. All right, so whatever. Take it for what it's worth. I'm really not going to get into this amateur experiment hour bullshit. We need experiments done well and precisely and thoughtfully, exchanging, our voodoo, throwing bone experiments, our little medicine man experiments is just sort of bullshit. I'm not at all for a amateur hour, physics adventure. I mean, fuck that. So, yeah, that's all. So, again, take it for what it's worth. I just have no interest in playing this idiotic proof game. So, you know, this idiot has decided he's proven things. He keeps saying he proved something. He keeps exaggerating. He debunks something. He didn't do any of this crap. It's just way preposterous exaggeration. And it's because he doesn't understand any theory at all. None. He doesn't know what a ballistic pendulum is. And apparently he doesn't know how an air track basically functions because he can't get his to work in 2 months. All right. So there's not much to say. We're all waiting for the air track experiments. Apparently he can't produce them. So, you know, we're going to have to wait till somebody else gets the hardware necessary to do these precise experiments. But just for the sake of argument, I'm just saying, if you people really believe, you know, I can't throw something twice as light, twice as far, I don't know why you believe it, but it's stupid. You know, if you think lighter wrecking balls knock down more buildings, you're stupid. You know, if you think professional bowlers, you know, would knock down more pins with 8-pound bowling balls, you're stupid. If you think a 10-ton train going 5 miles an hour would lose in a tug-of-war to a 5-ton train going 10 miles an hour, well, you know, get those reversed anyway. Now, there would be no loser. Be a tie. So stop being an idiot. I mean, this is, again, this is stuff that shouldn't even have to be argued. Conventional physics keeps saying things they never prove. They've been saying, again, for decades, I've heard, it takes 4 times as much gas to go twice as fast. No, it doesn't. They never proved it, never did the experiment, because the results of the experiment are going to be, no, it doesn't. It takes twice as much, not 4 times as much. Momentum was always a good idea. Galileo, Descartes, and Newton were not stupid, and they weren't clueless in the sense that their predictions were very good, and they explained a lot about the real world, and they didn't make a lot of mistakes. So why do you feel the need to correct them with your new modern physics that gets wrong answers and thinks it takes 4 times more fuel to go twice as fast? Silly things. Alright, so that's it. There's no point. I've made these arguments so many times. You really think the bullet has 2,000 joules of energy and the gun barrel only has 3? And yet you'll tell me that you believe in Newton's third law, you know, of conservation, you know, equal and opposite reactions. How can you have an equal and opposite when there's 2,000 joules going one way and only 3 going the other way? I'll never get a response to that question, so it's rhetorical, I guess. Alright, so enough of a video. So, till the next time and such, this has been a draftphysics.com video presentation. Plenty of videos on the website. So, links in the description, in the comments section, lots and lots and lots of arguments made. See if you can respond to any of them. I'd appreciate a rational response to some point I have made. Yeah, a rational counter argument would be appreciated.